But we can apply this to social media, right? We're still inviting ourselves into someone's life. And honestly, I'm going to be straight up honest, it's more personal than a television ad. It's more personal than a television set. We're inviting ourselves right into their pockets, right into their faces, right into their personal space. Welcome back to Tight Briefs, the marketing podcast that's short and sweet. We can get you out the door with some creative strategies that you can use without wasting your time. That's our goal here. Not wasting time, not wasting money. A big way to waste a lot of money is by messing up your ad creative. You're putting a lot of money into these advertisements, right? You're doing the targeting, you're doing the budget splits. But at the end of the day, creative is what makes or breaks a successful campaign. If this is your first time here, my name is Mike. I'm a Meta certified media buyer and creative strategist with 6FI, and I wanted to go through some principles of success when it comes to advertising on Meta platforms, especially on the creative side. So we're not going to go heavy into the data or any of the targeting or any of the testing. We really want to focus on what makes a great creative ad. Meta, as I'm sure you know, parent company of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, some big players when it comes to media buying in the social media space. And if you're trying to move the needle with some conversions, whether that be direct sales, whether that be farming leads, whatever you want to accomplish, Meta's ad platforms are designed to help you succeed with that. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to give it to you. Come on, let's get real here, right? But we can give ourselves the best possible shot by both playing for the algorithm's sake and to make sure that our audience is receptive to the creative that we're placing in these ads. My mic is shaking. Maybe I'm shaking. Maybe I'm getting fired up. Ads just get me fired up, man. I love this stuff. And so we're going to go through and give you some creative principles. So you have a couple of different media options for Meta ads. The images, that's your pictures, your graphics. This can be the 1x1 square, the portrait, a 16:9, a horizontal, any way to fit it on that screen, right? Then we have videos, similar size formats, right? 1:1, 16:9, 9:16. Keep in mind that the 4:5 aspect ratio option is mobile only. When it comes to Meta, I really like the vertical, but also the 1x1 feed is a surefire winner. Your other options, your carousels, your instant experiences, your catalog ads, these are all made up of the media. So we're really playing with images and videos. When it comes to images, you may remember the days when there was a limit to the amount of text that you could put inside of an image, or else it would be restricted. So you couldn't put it out there as an ad. That restriction is now gone. You can put as much text as you'd like. Should you? That's really more of a creative choice. We'll talk about that. When it comes to images, visible branding is a big plus. Meta likes to see that. Customers like to see that. Think about that when you are creating those images. Videos, likewise, want to have the hook. Obviously, we want to have a visible brand. Some people don't know this, but there is a 4-hour limit on video ads on Meta's platforms. Now, that's obviously crazy, but you can do it. If you really wanted to do a 4-hour ad, you absolutely could. I recommend 5 to 6 seconds. That's what we're seeing as the top performers right now. After that, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, up to 3 to 4 to 5 minutes if you're retargeting. But that's where creative is going to come into context. While we're talking about restrictions, let's go over the rules that we have to play in when we're making ads for Meta platforms. Some of these are no-brainers. Some of these, you might be a little surprised. So Meta's review process includes the image or video itself, right? The content of the ad, the copy. But that's not it. So the review process actually goes to the landing page or whatever link is connected to the ad and evaluates that page as well. They're also going to analyze your brand page that you're launching the ads from. So this review process is not restricted to your 1x1 postcard. Meta also says that it takes some other information into account. Not sure what that could be, but let's go over some of these restrictions so you know what to avoid. Number 1, any illegal products or activities. Can't be advertising those. Didn't know if you guys knew that. Discrimination, hate speech, misinformation, not allowed on Meta, not even organically, much less with the paid, right? Any deceptive practices, not going to be allowed. Tobacco and any products related to tobacco, also restricted. Alcohol is permitted, but the review process is pretty heavy. You have to make sure you're targeting legal drinkers. And there's a state-by-state law when it comes with this. it gets tricky. Outside of that, any unsafe substances, you can't be doing that. Any adult activities as well, not going to have a lot of luck getting that approved for ad placement with Meta. So outside of those obvious restrictions, now we can talk about some of these less obvious walls to our little box that we have to make our ads in. Unrealistic expectations. I'm going to read from Meta's description here. Ads must not contain promises or suggestions of unrealistic outcomes for health, weight loss, or economic opportunity. So if you're playing in any of those spaces, you have to be very careful with how you're presenting the creative in those ads. Grammar and profanity. Now this one you might be surprised by. Ads must not contain profanity or incorrect grammar and punctuation. Symbols, numbers, and letters must be used properly. So even if you are targeting, let's say your demographic, your audience is over the age of 21, you still are restricted with proper grammar and zero profanity. Now, what is profanity, right? That's also very loose, so it's best to play it on the safe side when it comes to the written copy or text included on your ads. Low quality or disruptive content. That's right. So one, you got to have high quality, but ads must not contain content leading to external destination landing pages that provide an unexpected or disruptive experience. So there's no surprise here. There's no tricks. You can't be a little cheeky with some of the ways that you present this. So this also includes misleading ad positioning, such as overly sensationalized headlines or prompts for users to inauthentically interact with the ad, and thus leading people to landing pages that contain minimal original content or a majority of unrelated content or simply of low quality. That's right, Meta is judging you on how high quality, not just your ad creative, but your copy, your landing page, and your whole business is. This one dovetails nicely with sensational content. So what is sensational content? Ads must not contain shocking, sensational, or violent content. Now you might think of this as something like a horror movie, like gore, like seeing something actually violent. But this could also be in the form of explosions, in the form of fast moving or crashing cars or vehicles. You want to think very safe when it comes to these kinds of things, because as marketers, especially when we're trying to capture that first 1.5 second hook window, it's easy to say, let's put something sensational right at the front, grab those eyes, right? It's smart, but not on Meta. Save that for other stuff, not on Meta. This one's important. Listen up. Personal attributes. Ads must not contain content that asserts or implies personal attributes. This includes direct or indirect assertions or implications about a person's race, ethnicity, religion, beliefs, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, physical or mental health, including mental conditions, vulnerable financial status, voting status, membership in a trade union, criminal record, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So no copy saying, hey, are you a felon that's recently been released from prison? Hey, are you a man over the age of 50 that's looking to secure a safe retirement? Knock it off. None of these here. Not on Meta. No assertions. Now, some of you media buyers will say, hey, I've gotten those ads approved. Something with a little bit of personalization, a little bit of that indirect targeting. I would say good for you. But when it comes to the laid out principles from Meta themselves, they don't want to see that. And it would really suck to have a campaign retroactively punished by Meta, such as the whole account or future campaigns being suppressed. Not saying they do that. They probably do that. So play it safe. Don't make these bold personal assertions. Wider sweeping statements. Personal health and appearance. This one is interesting as well. Ads must not imply or attempt to generate negative self-perception in order to promote diet, weight loss, or other health-related products. Ads must also not fixate on a specific human body part. And this is beyond sexuality, right? So you cannot have an ad that fixates on feet alone. You cannot have just a leg, just a hand. Meta does not like this. Why? Not exactly sure. That's just the way it goes. And finally, we have relevance. And this isn't really so much a restriction as it is Meta's way of ranking the ad. So it's important to consider, even though it may or may not affect whether the ad is allowed to run and you're allowed to give Meta money for it. Ads must clearly represent the company, product, service, or brand that is being advertised. Got to be relevant to you. All ad components, including any text, images, or other media, must be relevant to the product or service being offered. The products and services promoted in an ad must match those promoted on the landing page. So it has to be relevant not only to the context of the ad itself, your business, the product that is being advertised, and the landing page that it's advertised on. You got to work together, but you probably already have that. You probably have a brand. You probably have consistent materials, consistent brand voicing, right? You got that, right? So those are our restrictions, right? We have to come up with really great creative without breaking any of the rules. It's a fun game. It's like playing Operation, but instead of the tongs, we're using cameras and graphic styluses. From here, we go into the creative strategy, right? So what's the goal of the ad? Sales, leads, visitors, watch time. What do we want to do, right? Is it brand recall? When we have our goal, now we need to really dig into what makes a great creative ad. At 6FI, we like to follow the principles of meeting them where they are, telling them who you are, and giving them what they want. And I'll explain what this means. When it comes to meeting them where they are, we always ask the question, does this ad have legs? And this is literally, emotionally, generationally, and socially. What does this mean, right? I'm just saying words. Okay. L, literally. Where are they literally? Your viewer is literally on a meta platform viewing this ad. Otherwise, they would not be able to see it. So we know where they are. Great. What does that tell us? If they're on a meta platform, they're either on a cell phone, a tablet, a laptop, a desktop PC. We know what that dashboard looks like. We know what that scroll feed looks like. We design the ad to play within these parameters. The next step is emotionally. And so this is where we come into the state of the viewer, or desire position A. Depending on your brand and depending on your audience, you may have some psychographic data about the kind of person that you're selling to. Are they frustrated? Are they bored? Are they self-conscious? Are they hungry? Are they celebratory? In this moment, right? In the moment that they are viewing the ad, that's what we're trying to lock down here. As I said before, we can't outright claim to know where they are, right? Explicitly. So we have to assume and adapt. So we have LEG, generationally. This is our age group, right? Who we talking to? Because talking to Gen Z versus talking to Gen X, very different. They're going to respond very differently to the same creative. If we're targeting all of them, right? If we're targeting baby boomers down to Gen A, the same creative is not going to work for all of them, right? So we need different creative for every single generational gap. Honestly, we need multiple versions of every single piece of creative for every single generational gap. The closer that we can narrow that age range per piece of creative, let's say, the better it'll be. Because then we can tap in more deeply to the trends that are happening, the creative expression, the memery, the ways of communicating that are going to really cut through that noise. And finally, in our little acronym, we have socially. And this is socioeconomic status. This is culture. This is belief system. This is general location, whether that be rural, small town, urban environments. Do they live on a boat? What do their lives entail? Meaning, what kind of job experience are they going through? Among a lot of other stuff. You guys are marketers. You know what I'm talking about. I don't need to spell it out for you, but you get it, right? You go through, does this creative have legs? Let's put some legs on it. And it's important to remember, our creative is not operating in a void, right? We love creating our ads, but it's hard to imagine how they will appear on someone else's feed. Social media advertising is an integrated experience, right? We are now a part of someone's scroll. So we're not just competing with other ads, right? Which we are in the bidding process, but as far as the attention war, we're competing with all of the organic content that is on these platforms. We are essentially interrupting the viewer experience, and nobody likes that. I'm reminded of this quote from Martin Bose. Is it Bose? Bose? I've only ever seen it written. I don't know how it's said. If you are going to invite yourself into someone's living room, you have a duty not to shout at them or bore them or insult their intelligence. On the other hand, if you are a charming guest and you entertain them or amuse them or tell them something interesting, then they may like you a bit better and they may be more inclined to buy your brand. Now he's talking about TV, probably, right? Or magazines, I guess. Most likely TV. But we can apply this to social media, right? We're still inviting ourselves into someone's life. And honestly, I'm going to be straight up honest. It's more personal than a television ad. It's more personal than a television set. We're inviting ourselves right into their pockets, right into their faces, right into their personal space. Not only does that mean we have a higher duty not to be boring or insulting, but we have to talk even more specifically to that specific viewer. Putting that aside, meet them where they are. Done. We'll talk about it a little more in a bit. Next up, tell them who you are. And this is your brand, right? Not even just a product. This is your entire brand. This is your personality, brand voice, all that stuff. How do you say this without saying it? That's the job of creative, right? So now we have to talk about signaling. So what elements in our creative can we use to signal luxury, quirky, professional, silly, exciting? How do we say this without being like, we're an exciting brand? That's no good, right? We have to say it without saying it. Say less. The first hard part here is really knowing who you are first, because you can't be everything to everyone as much as we'd all love to be. So you have to know who you are. And when a brand says we're a flexible brand, usually that says to me that you don't have a brand. If you're huge, if you're Coca-Cola, fine, you can be flexible. But if you're a small SaaS startup, you can't have a flexible brand. It has to be very distinct. Once you have that brand coded, now instead of bending to trends, you can bend trends around your brand, and it'll make sense while still signaling who you are. If you're a personal brand, you at least have your face. If you're a faceless business, you have to work a little harder to make that personality come out. Knowing who you are, or who your brand is rather, means saying no to things that you aren't. And I know this is hard, especially when you see a certain trend winning or a certain style winning, and it's not in your brand book, but you'd really love to tap into what's going on in that trend right now. If you want that brand to be consistent and you want people to understand who you are, you have to say no to things that are outside of the bounds. Like look at Sierra Mist, for example. Sierra Mist changed into Starry. Very dramatic rebranding, right? Complete from top to bottom. You might not remember that for a period of, I think, 2 years, they became a drink called Twist. They removed the I, very edgy. They were like a graffiti stencil over the can, a total departure from these lofty pastel blue and green mountains of old. And it didn't work. No one understood what was happening. They didn't know what this was. And it didn't. And then they changed back to Sierra Mist. I think, 2 years, something like that. Do you guys drink Twist? Were you there? Now that's brand. We're talking creative, right? Am I getting off track? Well, this is all leading back to signaling. This is what I'm talking about. So if you know who you are, say you're a luxury brand, right? You're a Rolex, you're a Cadillac. You're not going to be playing with little trends that put the talking mouth on your car or your product. That's not you. No, you're luxury, right? So what signals luxury? Luxury creative tends to be very high contrast, deep shadows, really reflective highlights, not a lot of bland in between, right? You signal mystery. You signal smart. It can go for a very minimalist or maximalist approach. You can think of Apple, or you can think of perfume brands. There's a signaling of status. There's a signaling of an experience, almost like if you know, kind of nod without saying too much. So sort of that quiet wealth type of look. Let's go somewhere else. Exciting. An exciting brand. How do you signal that? Remember, we can't use explosions, right? But we can use dirt bikes. We can use backflips. We can use astronaut monkeys, DJs, almost skate video style cinematography, very wide, very hectic, very 90s, very extreme. Now, how about professional creative, professional brand? This is a lot of B2B. So with a lot of B2B ads, we have very highly consistent branded color palettes. A lot of ads almost limit the number of colors. Like you might use a 2-tone palette, 2 or 3 color for the whole thing. Professional creative is also logic driven. So very solution up front. There's no beating around the bush. There's no mystery or anything to discover here. We're going to tell you right now. That's professional style copy. You can have something a little funny, something a little clever, right? But very office humor, very dad joke. We're not trying to stretch the limits here because we have a larger message to tell you, and that's about our laboratory or about our B2B SaaS, CRM, data-backed AI. You get it. I also say that if you personally represent your target audience, so if your business targets women 24 to 29 and you're a woman 24 to 29, I recommend showing yourself prominently in the ad creative. You can't replace the amount of relatability that you get there. So we have our guide here. We know that we have to meet them where they are, understand the context in which this creative is going to live and who it's speaking to. Then we know who we are and how we're going to signal to that first group who we are. Now, finally, we give them what they want. I'm waiting. You tell me. You tell me. You're the product guy. I'm just here in marketing. So obviously, we're going to take some liberties in what the audience wants, but we are going to assume that we're talking to someone that does want what we're selling or would consider it if they knew more about it. Now, if you're a consumer, I mean, you are a consumer, but if you were the consumer of the target of your ad, what would you want? In a lot of cases, for me, it always comes back to a lot of cases when I'm shopping online, I want a direct answer. So I want to know either how much this thing costs or I want to know how to do this thing. So tell them right in the ad, right? Don't say, hey, I know what you want, but you got to click here. We're not playing games. We give them what they want in the creative. If they want to know how much it costs, and that's the number one question. If the number one question your customers have is how much does it cost, put the cost in the creative. Oh, but what if we put our sales, our customer journey? Give them what they want. If you don't, you're just wasting money on the ads because the ads are just driving people to the funnel. And then as soon as they find out how much it costs, they bounce. So if say they want a solution, right? We're selling solutions to problems. How fast can you provide it? And how specific can you make that solution in the creative? And remember, a lot of this is saying it without saying it. We can't just come out and say, hey, do you have X problem, X problem, X problem? Here's X solution, X solution. So does the audience want a little bit of discovery, a little bit of exploration, so to speak, right? So we take them on an adventure. We put them in the cockpit. We give them what they want. If that's what they want, maybe they're just hungry, right? Maybe that's what they want. We give it to them. So you take these principles, right? We know our restrictions. We know the context of our creative, both in the media format and where it's going to live. We put legs on that ad. We tell them exactly who we are in little nuanced ways that are going to make sense to who we're speaking to. And then we give them what they want in the creative. This is up to you to really refine because every target audience and every brand is going to be highly specific. Most that I see should be more specific than they are. So I recommend getting a little more dialed into that side. But after all that, and you make your creative, which you can't just make one, right? You're making a lot. How do you know if you have the right meta ad creative? Test it at scale. This is the number one advantage of social media advertising. There is no other medium of advertising that you can test so many wide varieties of creative at the same audience simultaneously and get the data back that's actually useful. You can't do that with direct mail. You can't do that with TV. You can't do that with billboards. You can create segmentation, but you're not, it's the amount of data you can get back in like 48 hours. No other ad type does it. Sorry, they don't. Oh, but that's expensive. How many should I test? What am I testing for? We're going to go into that in the next episode. I'm going to do a whole episode about testing. I thought about putting it in this one, but it's already going to get too long. And this is tight briefs, remember? So coming up next, we'll talk about the testing, how we go about testing our creative, the process, what you should be looking for, how you can replicate this, and how you can scale those ads. Thank you all for tuning in once again. Remember, you can subscribe to the Tight Briefs newsletter. It comes out once a week, full of marketing news, plus these podcasts. You can get everything all in one in your inbox. Check it out. Or if you want to work with me, Mike, 6FI, link in the description below. Like, subscribe, share. You're going to do what you want to do. I'm going to give you what you want. That's Tight Briefs. See you next week.